Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to be back with you. A couple of summers ago, my oldest nephew, Albert, went on his first week-long summer camp. He was 9 years old at the time, and when he got back, I asked him what his favorite part of the week was, and he quickly told me that it was the rock climbing wall. Well, he started to recount the story of his experience on the climbing wall, and he said he wasn't quite sure he wanted to do it, that he wanted to get harnessed up, but peer pressure kind of gave in, and he got harnessed up, and he got to the foot of the wall, and little by little, he started to make his way up it. But after getting up about 10 feet from the ground, disaster struck. His left shoe fell off, and when that happened, he said, I thought to myself, I'm finished. There's no way I'm going to make it up this wall, but he kept going. He got about another 10 feet up on the wall when his one remaining shoe caused issue for him, that the shoelace got caught on one of the climbing holds. And at this point, once again, he said, I'm finished. I can't do this. He said, I started to say Hail Mary. And then I yanked my foot as hard as I could, and it broke loose, and he started to continue his ascent. Well, he finally got up to the top, to the platform at the top of the climbing wall, and he looked down at the way he had come up. He looked out at the view from the top, and I asked him, Albert, what were you thinking about when you got to the top of the wall? And he just said this. Remember, he's 9. He said, I thought to myself, how the hell did I just do that? But friends, I think one day, please God, we're going to look back on our lives here below. And we're going to see a lot of joys, hopefully, but we're also going to see a lot of suffering. We're going to see a lot of trials and difficulties that came our way. And we're going to be amazed that through it all, God was still able to lead us to that high place. God was still able to get us to that place of glory despite all of the difficulties that we faced and have had to endure. In one of my favorite stories written by C.S. Lewis, the novel The Great Divorce, Lewis, through one of his characters, talks about our future glory one day being so great that it will work backwards. That, please God, one day from heaven, I will look back on my life on earth, and what will I see? I will not see a perfect life. I will not see a life that was completely filled with comfort and ease. It will be no cakewalk, but I will look back from heaven and see my life here on earth as having already been heaven lived on earth. Because from that high place, I will see how God used absolutely everything in my life, the good and the bad, to lead me to my heavenly home. That one day I will see how literally every part of my life fits together in this great story that God is writing. And not just the easy moments and the moments of profound joy and success, but also those moments of when I was tried and faced adversity. I will see how God permitted them for some reason that it might lead to this future glory. Now, brothers and sisters, none of us is at the top of this climbing wall yet. None of us experiences the fullness of that vision yet. But in our second reading today, St. Paul tells us that we can already begin to live in the hope of that vision. St. Paul told us that I consider that the sufferings of this present time are as nothing compared to the glory that stands to be revealed to us. I consider that the sufferings of this present time are as nothing compared to the glory that stands to be revealed to us. Paul is writing to a small and newly founded Christian community in pagan Rome. Their life is not easy. Paul himself, at the time of this writing, has experienced imprisonment, stoning, persecution. His life has not been easy. And yet, despite it all, Paul is absolutely convinced with the hope that comes from Christ that none of it has any chance against the future glory that awaits us. That God is able to work through every part of our life in such a powerful sort of way to bring us to this future glory. And you and I, we are invited as Christians, as followers of a man who died but rose from the dead, to already begin to see our lives in the shadow of this future glory. And this completely changes how we live. It gives us a new perspective to live according to this future hope that is ours. Maybe just a small story to try and show this. Imagine that there were two people that were hired for the same exact job, same working conditions. They were doing the same thing day in and day out, making widgets in a factory. Now, when one of them was hired, they were told, hey, you're going to make $1,000 a year to do this job. When the other person was hired, they were told, hey, you're going to make $1 million a year to do this job. Well, one day they're in the break room eating lunch, and the one who makes $1,000 a year was kind of complaining about the job. I can hardly stand driving in here every morning to do the same thing over and over again. I hate this job. It's awful. It's torturous. Meanwhile, the person who's making $1 million a year is thinking to himself, what are you talking about? This job is incredible. What's the difference between them? Not the jobs they're working, but what the job is promising them. You and I have received a great promise from God that gives us hope. That nothing we experience in this life, over the course of our lives here on earth, everything we endure, it is paving the way to a future glory. And to live according to that vision changes everything about how we view our lives. Now, this hope is sure. It's not flimsy. We throw around the word hope very loosely. Last Monday, I had hoped that the U.S. soccer team was going to beat Belgium. Well, those hopes were squashed in a big way. On July 3rd, I had hoped the weather was going to be clear so that I could shoot off fireworks, but the weather was not clear that night. We hope for a lot of things, or we say we hope for a lot of things, many of which never happen. But our hope in the future glory that awaits us is not a flimsy, loose kind of hope. It is a hope that is built upon the word of Jesus. Isaiah today tells us that God's word comes down to the earth and it will not come back to him void. That it will accomplish the task for which he sent it. Our hope is not based on anything that is worldly, is not based on anyone other than the Lord who is trustworthy and who is true. And so how do we grow in this kind of hope? How do we regain this vision of what awaits us so as to transform how we are presently living? I think Jesus' image of the seed in our gospel is actually really helpful. Because this farmer who goes and sows seed, the first bit of seed, it falls on the path, but it isn't rooted enough. And Jesus explains that the lack of roots is because that the person lacks understanding, lacks this ability to truly understand what it is that God is promising. You know, we have to constantly be reminded of what our faith promises us. Because every day we are constantly being reminded of things that might squash hope in us. Our minds are constantly being filled with images and thoughts and bits of news that probably take away some semblance of hope in us. This past week, I decided to delete the Twitter app off of my phone. We'll see how long I last. But I began to realize that so much of the content that I am ingesting was not leading me to have a deeper sense of hope or peace. That there are so many things that we can take in that they don't breed hope in us, they breed despair. One of the steps of being a Christian is to consistently remind ourselves of what it is we believe through reading of Scripture. Through understanding what does the church actually teach about this or that. At our fingertips, more than any other Christian that has ever lived before, we have so much information that we can inform ourselves with. And as we're reminding ourselves of the hope that lives within us, that hope is increasing. But then Jesus talks about some of the seed that was scattered among thorns and among thistles. And he compares this to the seed that's sown in people who have their worries and their cares on worldly desires and things. And the way out of this is to ask myself, is my life more about worrying about worldly things than it is eternal things? Are there ways in which even good worldly concerns have become disordered and twisted in my life? What does the practice of my faith day in and day out look like? You're all here on a Sunday morning. You could be doing anything else right now, so that's a good start. What does the practice of my faith look like when I leave church on Sunday? How am I reminding myself of what I'm about and where I'm headed by how I am living? As we're doing all of this, the hope that lives in us, it will grow and it will begin to blossom. But friends, today, Jesus, who is the sower of the seed, he shows himself to be profoundly hopeful, if not a terrible farmer, because he's sowing seed on all different kinds of ground. God isn't waiting for us to be perfect to sow his seed in our life. He's already trying to sow seed even in the thorny pockets of our lives. He's already sowing seed on the paths of our life, and it's our opportunity, it's our responsibility to try and make more fertile ground for that seed to be planted and to grow. And as it does, we will grow in this vision of hope, that we will begin to live in a new sort of way. We will begin to be able to live with this great vision of glory that awaits us.